How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
In Minnesota, perinatal and postpartum mothers have legal protections to help keep them safe and healthy in the workplace. That means exclusions from heavy lifting, safe spots for breastfeeding, and more. The Women's Economic Security Act protects the rights of pregnant and postpartum women to work safely during pregnancy and to express breast milk at work. The Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry is here to help you and to protect your rights. Call 800-342-5354 or visit dli.mn.gov/newparents.
We are your relatives.
We are your relations.
Brothers,
sisters,
sons,
daughters.
And some of us are your grandchildren.
We are your community. Historically, we held places of honor and respect. Because of the impact of colonization, some of us are rejected, thrown out from family, friends, and community, set up as targets for sexual violence, sex trafficked, humiliated, tortured, and murdered. Everybody has the right to be safe. We are your relatives. Remember,
homophobia is not traditional.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Life is a journey, and the Doherty Family College will help you get where you want to go. Located downtown Minneapolis, this affordable 2-year college provides free textbooks, a laptop, meals, career coaches, one-on-one mentorship, and a Metro Transit pass, making DFC the perfect pathway to a bachelor's degree. Turn your dreams into reality. Connect with a counselor today at dfc.stthomas.edu.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for a chance of thunderstorms overnight with a low around 71. Thursday sunny with a high of 86, and Friday sunny with a high near 84. Nightingale is your cozy, comfortable neighborhood bar and destination restaurant serving delicious food and drinks. They have patio, dining room, and barroom seating available as well as takeout and delivery. Current hours are 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. daily with the full menu available until midnight. That's Nightingale off 26th and Lindale. More at nightingalempls.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Courtney Cup, hit me cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. You're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakan Jahade, Distant Thunder. My colonized name is Robert Pilot, and we discuss national and local Native news and events. And as you know, Wendy, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 Hotline. Call them at 651-304-9986. They're open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And they're also having a vaccine clinic, this Friday, July 30th from 4 to 6 p.m. It's going to be at the Gustavus Adolphus Lutheran Church at 1669 Arcade Street in St. Paul. Yeah. Free. Pfizer vaccines are available for individuals ages 12 and older, free saliva, COVID-19 testing, free Indian tacos, and individuals who complete a brief survey get a $10 gift card while they last.
Wow, that's awesome.
So check it out.
Definitely. Hey, Ogimaa did a great job. She was on the Matt McNeil show today.
Right before us.
Yeah, and really rocked it out. And either Ogimaa or I will be on tomorrow on Devil's Radio, Devil's Advocate in Madison is also covering Native Roots Radio, and we're going to talk some truth about Line 3 there. People are really interested all over Turtle Island about what's going on there, along with Line 5. Again, the blackout on the news, just like we dealt with, Wendy, when we started the show during Standing Rock, when that was happening, the Dakota Access Pipeline, and because there wasn't any news. And so we're getting a lot of traction and credit for what work we're doing here. And speaking of which, why don't we start out with the news with Ogimaa. Again, great job, Ogimaa, on Matt's show.
Hey, McWitch, Robert, Wendy, thank you so much. I was kind of laughing as I was leaving the show because I did a lot of that from memory because we talk about this so much, and I can't say that I'm really proud of that, but the fact that we have to talk about it this much over and over and over again is honestly exhausting, and I wish that we had more media coverage that could help us with this. So if you know anybody in media, Indigenous, ground media, major media, or otherwise, and you know that they're not covering Line 3, and this is something that's important to you, call those people. I think a lot of people probably don't realize, that they know somebody in media, and it's important to share this with your friends in media if they're not able to get information or they're looking for coverage information. So just want to put that out there today. In news of the Stop Line 3 movement, yesterday, Enbridge was served a cease and desist order issued by the White Earth Nation, telling them to pause their drilling with the pipeline under the Mississippi headwaters for 48 hours so that the White Earth Nation and its guests could complete a water ceremony. However, today it has been announced that Enbridge has ignored this cease and desist order and continues to move forward with this drilling. What this is a violation of treaty rights. They're not asking for an immediate shutdown for forever. They were asking for 2 days for Indigenous water protectors to exercise their treaty rights and to hold a ceremony for the water. Indigenous water protectors and non-native allies were to be led by the RISE Coalition, and were going to begin their ceremony of healing and protection for the river, which was harmed by recent spills at this site. In other big news of the Stop Line 3 movement is there was a letter that went out yesterday from the Minnesota House of Representatives and Minnesota State Senate to the commissioner of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, Peter Tester. It was signed by about 20 representatives and about 15 senators from Minnesota. And the letter opens up saying that they're writing to express their concerns with reported releases of drilling fluid at 9 separate locations across the Enbridge Line 3 pipeline route, and that there's concerns of severe drought and excessive heat experienced throughout Minnesota and the impact of those waterways, wetlands, and marshes due to these harmful chemicals. They asked for dates and locations of each incident, total amount of drilling fluid released, and point out that the transparency of this process has been not very good, that the public has had access to the information only through social media posts, Enbridge's press releases, and individual conversations or email exchanges with staff from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. It goes on to make some other demands, and then given the frequent nature of these releases, they are asking that they temporarily suspend the Section 401 certification and order Enbridge to immediately halt all drilling along the Line 3 route until the state is no longer experiencing drought conditions or until a thorough investigation can be completed by their agencies so that the causes of these releases are fully understood and could be further avoided. I am so proud of the representatives who signed this letter. Among them are representatives and senators that we know support us: Senator Mary Kunesh, Jen McEwen, Aaron Murphy are on this list, and other representatives, Jamie Becker-Finn, Sandra Feiss, Cedric Frazier, all of these representatives and people that signed this. Heather Keeler, of course, is also on this list. Thank you so much for getting this letter out to Commissioner Pete Tester. I really hope that the MPCA takes the time to hear your voice, as currently they're not listening to the voices of regular Minnesotans very clearly, as we all know. If you are looking for more ways to get involved to help stop Line 3, there's some really great events that are coming up this Thursday, tomorrow from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Minnesota State Capitol. MN 350 and Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light are hosting an event called We Are All Downstream, and they are gathering to make it clear to Governor Walz and other state agencies such as the MPCA that they have failed us by allowing Line 3 to continue to facilitate climate destruction and violate treaty rights. Coming up on August 7th at 9 a.m. is the Treaty People Walk for Water. That is an MN 350 and Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light event as well. The Coffee Pot Landing is near the crossing of the Mississippi River where Enbridge's most recent frack out was. They are going to be gathering in the style of walks of the American Indian movement, and they ask that everybody join in a prayerful walk in solidarity with the Mississippi River, water, and to honor the treaties that our ancestors signed. They're leaving from Coffee Pot Landing on August 7th and will take 2 weeks to walk down to the Minnesota Capitol building by August 25th. So that's going to be a big event we'll be following. And then coming up August 18th, starting at 12 p.m. is an all ages show at the Duluth Bayfront Park. Is going to be a concert. Honor the Earth is presenting Water is Life, Stop Line 3. They're going to be featuring artist Bon Iver, Mumu Fresh, Lissy, Quiltman, Doreen Day, Wabana Wakwe, David Huckfelt and the Unarmed Forces, Annie Humphrey, Corey Medina, and more. There's going to be more announced soon. And this is all going to be hosted by Winona LaDuke. So that's Wednesday, August 18th at 1 p.m. at the Bayfront Park in Duluth. You can get your tickets at bit.ly/Water is Life Festival. And the last really awesome piece of news that I want to give you after going through all that negative news is that a native Hawaiian has won the first ever Olympic gold for surfing. Her name is Carissa Moore.
Right on, right on. Hey, give those names. And that's at, what day is the 18th? Is that a Wednesday?
It is a Wednesday. It's Wednesday, August 18th. Guest artists are going to be Bon Iver, Mumu Fresh, Lissy.
Mumu.
Yes, David Huckfelt and the Unarmed Forces, Annie Humphrey, Corey Medina, Larry Long, Charlie Parr, Doreen Day, Wabana Kwe, and I think there's going to be more that are announced. So that's already a pretty significant list.
Yeah, I wish I could make it up there. Noon's a hard time to make it up there during the middle of the week, but are they going to be streaming or anything, Ogimaa? Do you know?
I'm going to guess that there's going to be some streaming that's coming out. I don't believe this is the first Water is Life festival. I believe they hosted one the summer before last as well. But I will have to do some more research and get back to you on that one.
Yeah, well, Pini Gigi, for your news and also all you do for our people out there, Ogimaa. You know, we have to know what's going on, and you really do a lot of hard work behind the scenes, Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're gonna switch it up a little bit again today, and you can give us a call at 952-946-6205. But we're gonna have Lewis Eagle Thunder, and we're gonna talk about a few things that have come up, and it's gonna be the section number 2 of the news.
Stay with us.
You're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake. I heard sex trafficking happens a lot in Indian country. What is that?
Here are some of the real reasons why sex trafficking happens in Indian country. Unequal gender roles that were forced on us by colonization. Communities don't have enough resources. Silence around domestic and sexual violence. Lack of attention and justice for missing and murdered Indigenous people. There's a lot of behavior that keeps our communities out of balance. These are just a few true reasons why Native communities are targeted by traffickers. When these acts of violence happen in our communities, it opens us all up for exploitation.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
We have vital information we would like to share with you. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on testing sites, isolation space, vaccines, housing assistance, and food resources. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19 or has questions to determine if you should get tested, please call them at 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986. That's 651-304-9986. COVID-19 vaccines are safe, effective, free, and approved for everyone over the age of 12. Need help getting a COVID-19 vaccine? Trusted community connectors can find vaccination sites, make appointments, answer questions, and provide interpretation. To learn more about scheduling a free appointment or find a community connector, visit ramseycounty.us/COVID vaccine. That's ramseycounty.us/COVID vaccine.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice. And I just want to mention the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is featuring a vaccine clinic this Friday, July 30th from 4 to 6 at the Gustavus Adolphus Lutheran Church, 1669 Arcade Street in St. Paul. So, yeah, there's, if you're watching us on Facebook, there is a picture of a free
Indian taco.
Go
on that
for
fry
it.
bread.
All right, there you go.
You know, if you've ever been to a powwow, those things are like anywhere between $6 and $9. Like a free Indian taco is a good deal.
Yeah, it is.
Need a small family too. Hey, Wendy, you know, we've had Lewis on, I don't know, for 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Something like that.
We don't even know
Feels
where
like
he came
forever.
where he came from. And it's same with Ogimaa. Like she appeared out of nowhere too. And she's been around for a couple of years. But Lewis, you have an update you want to bring up, and after the segment 2, we're going to have Bob Blake from Red Lake with the Solar Bear News. But let's first go with Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to mention with Ogimaa is that it's not only $6 for the Indian taco. You have to wait 2.5 hours to get your Indian taco because the line's that long. So that's Indian country. But how mataki yapi yuha chante washte nape chayuza pelo wambli wakiya emachi yapi lo. I agree with a good heart and a warm handshake. Thank you, Robert and Wendy and Ogimaa for creating such a great space for us here. I want to talk a little bit about, you know, every child matters, and we know everything that happened in our First Nations communities and Kamloops, as well as other provinces in Canada. But now what we're seeing is the idea of repatriation. A lot of our relatives' remains in boarding schools, and the dark history of genocide and the Holocaust of Indigenous people. One of these was, let me just back up a little bit. Usually before 1990, archaeologists had free reign over any territory, and they would dig up bones and remains and artifacts of Indigenous relatives, and they would put them in, the Smithsonian. They would take them and they would sell them on the black market. And they created a federal law in 1990 called the Native American Graves and Protection and Repatriation Act. Basically, what it said is that it was to return and repatriate certain Native American human remains, funerary objects, sacred objects, and objects of cultural patrimony. By enacting NAGPRA, Congress recognized that the human remains of any ancestry, quote, must at all times be treated with dignity and respect. So Native tribes, 574 federally recognized tribes under treaty with the United States, now has a say with archaeological digs that is on basically federal land or tribal land. This is the issue we have today in 2021, Robert and Wendy and Ogimaa, is that we have many of these boarding schools that have now closed. The last one in 1996 in First Nations communities, but a lot of them a lot older than that have gone into disarray. They're just on private space. They're on state land, private land, and a lot of our relatives remain on these lands. So when we think about NAGPRA, which is the short way of saying the Native American Graves and Protection and Repatriation Act, we talk about how we can repatriate the remains on each individual tribe. I know me and Robert were talking about the Ho-Chunk Nation. I believe that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but your nation does not want repatriation. They want the remains to stay there. And a lot of other nations want to repatriate remains and bring them back to their own territory. So this is the diversity of Indian country. When we think about all of us, we're all not a monolith, and we all should be respected with our own spiritual practices. So what we want to do is we want to emphasize the idea that not only should all of our relatives' remains that were forced into boarding school have the opportunity to be repatriated to tribal communities and nations, but we should have the option and also be consulted when these remains and evidences are found. So we are pushing to include and update the 1990 NAGPRA, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, to also include state and private land as well. So if it's on private land or if it's on state land, Native nations also have a say into repatriating that, Robert. And I think this is a really important issue when we talk about, Native sovereignty and treaty rights. And, we always talk about, how can we do a better job as the United States in our relations to indigenous people? And, part of that, of course, is line 3, line 5, respect for the earth, respect for our environment, respect for animals, but also respect for our treaties that we made with sovereign Native nations, Robert.
Yeah, and definitely the law of the land is treaties, and the one thing that's been very accurate over the last 500 years, and then the 240 some years or 50 years of the United States being a country, they have not really, liked any of our treaties that they've made with us. They've gone south on all of them, Wendy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they haven't held up to one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Lewis, I just want to say too, just a quick shout out to you as we continue with this conversation, is that you have roughly 90,000 people following you on TikTok. Do you want to give your TikTok name, and we can move on from there? But I'd really want to promote the great work that you're doing. And I know I've watched your TikToks before we met and had you on the radio show, and the knowledge that you send all over TikTok is amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Robert. It's for those that are on TikTok, it's actually the #1 app right now as far as social media subscribership. So that's where everyone is at right now this summer in 2021. And my handle is Lakota Guy, at that little @ sign, then Lakota Guy. But one more I want to say about NAGPRA is this includes our Hawaiian sovereign nations on repatriating their remains as well. They to Iwa Kapana. I cannot pronounce it correctly, but also, this is respecting not only the lower 48, we're talking about Alaska, and also our Hawaiian sovereign brothers and sisters over there fighting for their own sovereignty.
Yeah. Hey, in 1990 also too, a friend of mine's father passed away. And they were selling his stuff, and he had an antique show or antique store at one time for a long time. And guess what was there? We had a lot of Native American scalps. We had all these things that people used to sell at these stores, and the disrespect that all these years that these antique stores have done to our people too. Thank goodness for that law, but there's still stuff floating around, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. The term, redskin actually comes from a policy of scalping Native Americans. Each redskin costs a certain amount of money. Ogimaa, did you have anything to add on here? I know you had your hand raised.
I feel like
with the scalps and those types of things, the United States didn't just make money on Native Americans by, taking their land and resources. They also made money on Native Americans by creating these they would pay you for bringing back Indian scalps. And then on top of that, they turned around and made money on making movies about this so that people still have those scalps. And I don't even think, because of the massive amount of damage that was done using the media and movies, that these aren't real people, they don't really exist, that kind of idea, I think, is what continues to perpetuate people having these human remains and treating them like knickknacks.
Oh, wow. Good point. There was Lewis, there was a documentary out Wendy and I saw years ago called Real Indians. And it was a documentary on how the Ford movies back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the John Wayne movies really gave us a bad rap on it was, I think you can still find it on YouTube or somewhere around. I know it was on Netflix for a long time, but Real Indians, and it talks about the Native Americans and how they were portrayed in films, Wendy.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch F Troop.
Oh my God.
on TV. So
Oh my God. It's still on.
Is
I've
it
seen
still
it.
on? Yeah, that
don't know if these
really
youngins
is
know
so derogatory towards the Native American people. But yeah, F
It's
Troop,
still
it was
on.
on, like primetime TV, and everybody, there was like 4 channels back there, and when we were kids. But
Right. Oh,
I can't count the number of shows and movies that I watch that have even come out in the year 2020 and 2021 where they steal something from Native culture. They're talking about doing peyote, or they're, talking or using things like I don't want to call out the shows, but I know there's been multiple shows. A lot of shows don't cover Thanksgiving very well. That's always the Thanksgiving episode's always really painful, and these are shows that are coming out, last year, this year, and it continues.
Thanks taking. That's what we called it when we were at Standing Rock during Thanksgiving.
they call it the Lakota-ization of Hollywood, because they took teepees, headdresses, etc., and put them in Hollywood. So, we talk about, critical race theory in K through 12 education. We need to indigenize our education systems through K through 12 education, land acknowledgement, getting indigenous communities and nations involved in K through 12 education on a local level. That's how we reverse stereotypes, reverse policies of indigenous erasure, Robert.
Yeah, we definitely have to start with the young people, because the old people are, hey, I'm wearing a Indian costume for Halloween. I'm like giving you guys a shout out. I'm giving you guys credit. I'm honoring you during trick-or-treat season, and
at Burning Man.
That's a whole episode itself. Burning Man. Hey, we're gonna have Robert Blake from Red Lake on next. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake and Peony Gigi for this discussion, Lewis and Ogimaa. We'll be right back after this short break.
Stay with us. If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
In Minnesota, perinatal and postpartum mothers have legal protections to help keep them safe and healthy in the workplace. That means exclusions from heavy lifting, safe spots for breastfeeding, and more. The Women's Economic Security Act protects the rights of pregnant and postpartum women to work safely during pregnancy and to express breast milk at work. The Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry is here to help you and to protect your rights. Call 800-342-5354 or visit dli.mn.gov/newparents.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me one. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
Hi, I'm Alicia Luther-Tom, certified financial planner with an all-women team at RBC Wealth Management. Making sure you and your loved ones can live comfortably in the future starts with the choices you make today. During times like these, having a trusted investment team is more important than ever. We practice social distancing and can work with clients remotely. This is Alicia Luther-Toms at 612-770-4460 or alicia.luther.toms@rbc.com.
RBC Wealth Management, a division of RBC Capital Markets, LLC, member NYSE, FINRA, SIPC.
We have vital information we would like to share with you. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on testing sites, isolation space, vaccines, housing assistance, and food resources. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19 or has questions to determine if you should get tested, please call them at 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986. That's 651-304-9986.
This is Santita Jackson. Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. Central, we'll bring you the best progressive talkers, thinkers, and doers on AM 950, Minnesota's progressive voice.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for a chance of thunderstorms overnight with a low around 71, Thursday sunny with a high of 86, and Friday sunny with a high near 84. Next Chapter Booksellers in St. Paul is open for in-person browsing again. Their expert staff of booksellers will help you find the perfect book no matter your taste. No appointment is necessary, but masks are required. Open Mondays through Saturdays 10 to 5 and Sundays noon to 5. More at nextchapterbooksellers.com.
Bijou. I am Oshawashko Gijig. I'm from Red Lake Nation, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
That's so cute. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, it's Wednesday, Wendy. And that's hard to say. There's too many W's in that, but it's the solar news with the solar bear, and the solar bear is Robert Blake. Welcome, Robert.
Anim, bonjour, everyone.
Hey, you started up the show a little different. You just threw us off. That's good.
I just got back from Red Lake.
It's Bob Blake from Red Lake. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
hey, your sun panels, are they okay with the big storm that was up there?
Yeah, absolutely. The guys went out and checked them, and they held up just fine.
That's great. That
awesome. Is good news.
That they were like baseball size hail, and they were bouncing off the panels.
That's good. Some good panels you got there. So hey,
must be pretty springy.
They're springy, yeah, exactly. I still can't get over the fact that, we talked about a long time ago, is that these solar panels work better when it's cold. But you explained why, but that's excellent. So, hey, you have the solar news. You have what's going all over Turtle Island. It's great to always have you on every Wednesday, because now I can talk to other people, whether it's tribal members or my government, in a coherent way about the next economy, and also the next way to heat your house.
Yeah, absolutely. To power your residents, and it's really exciting, Robert. So this first story is really cool too, because it's solarize. Here's how it goes. Here's what it is: solarizing the equivalent of 30 million American homes could create 1.77 million new jobs and lead to 69 billion in energy savings over the next 5 years. We're not talking about like 30 years, Robert. We're not talking about 20 years. We're not even talking about 10 years. We're talking about 5 years.
I'll still be alive, Wendy.
We'll both still be alive, and that is really good news.
Yeah, exactly.
We just have to get the fossil fuel company to go away.
Well, and everyone, that's a come I say, right? Like, it's so important that tribal nations lead in this initiative, right? Because you have to understand, like, the businesses and the markets are going to fight us all the way, right? And when you have these renewable energy entrepreneurs who create these wonderful solar panels, this new technology, these new inverters, all these things, right? Well, it needs a marketplace to go to, okay? It needs a market to sell into, right? And that's where tribal nations can really fill that gap. And then once it gets a foothold in our markets, meaning tribal nations, right? People are going to see how great this technology is and how wonderful it is. And then they're going to be able to scale up, right? And then you're able to scale up. But you need that initial investment. You need that initial buy-in to make a market go. It's just like the electric vehicle back in, when was that, Robert? 1995 or something? 1993? It's not any different, everyone.
Or even back in the day when I was in high school, the liquid hydrogen cars that were run on water and all the oil companies bought up. Do you remember that? I know you were young back then, Bob, but I was kicking it in my 66 Chevy Impala.
Well, that's the point, Robert, right? So like this technology needs a marketplace, and that's where tribal nations can come in and fill that gap and be that place to create the market, so these guys can get a footing, and then they can and then they can scale up, right? So that's why I say, like, people ask me, like, why are tribal nations so important to us reaching our carbon goals? Don't you understand how important it is for new technology to get its footing in a market? And that's why it's really, and that's why tribal nations are so key to us reaching our carbon goals.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people are, and I know tribes across Turtle Island are looking towards you and people like you that are leading the way in these solar panels and wind turbines, and talking. We had a discussion, and you threw me eight links of how our nations can get grants, especially with what's happening right now with the COVID funding and the first-time grants. And this is the time right now, Robert.
Absolutely. And I just had a couple of friends of mine come back from that Native American Economic Development Summit out in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And they said they said that the talk of the conference was going green. Like, that's the talk of the conference, man. The tribal nations all across this country are all talking about going green. They've got this American Recovery Plan money coming in. I'm telling tribal nations right now, double down on it. I don't have to explain to you what the 100-degree weather it looks like outside our windows, Robert. I don't have to explain to you about the flooding that we're seeing right now. I don't have to explain to you about the droughts that are happening. I don't have to talk to you about the famine that's happening over in Madagascar right now because of climate change. Like, this is going down, and we have to prepare our communities and our people for the inevitable.
And I think we are, and I think that's really cool that we are talking about. Lewis, do you have a statement for Bob Blake?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask you real quick. I'm really excited when you come on the program because you're offering a solution. We always talk about doom and gloom, but you're such a ray of sunshine when it comes to these type of solutions. I always think about, my home of Rapid City, South Dakota. We have a indigenous homeless issue there, and Nick Thielsen with the Indian Collective was thinking about repatriating some land near Rapid City to have tiny homes. And one of the solutions was maybe come with some solar energy that can, power these solar homes. So maybe I was wondering if you could talk about that. And we've talked about the Wall of Forgotten Natives in Minneapolis as well with tiny homes. We're thinking about homing solutions and power solutions for these homes. Could you talk a little bit about how something like that would be implemented?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you want to do when you're in any home, this is any home, okay? You want to be able to concentrate on your insulation. That is key. That's the first thing. Insulation, super, super important. Second thing, where you produce your power and use it at is the most efficient way to use energy. So, like we're so accustomed to turning on the light switch and then that going into down the road and us getting our energy like 30 miles away, right? Well, we lose about half of that energy that we pay for. So we're paying for 100% of that energy, but we're only getting 50% of it. So that's why when you have solar energy and you have that on top of your home and you're using it right there in your home, right? That is the most efficient way. Now, if you can include storage, which is batteries, right? If you can include a battery along with it, then all the better right there. So that's very possible what you're talking about there, Lucy, that all that can happen. And you guys could literally create a virtual power plant right there in your little home community there. You know, I could advise Nick on that, tell Nick what to do. And as a matter of fact, the Indian Collective has picked my brain a bunch of times. So just tell them to call me. Like they know the Indian Collective has picked my brain one or two or three or four times. Already.
Lines are open now, Nick.
It's like they call me up, they pick my brain, and then I don't hear from them until they want to call me up and pick my brain again. So like, just tell them that they can pick my brain on that one too again.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm an open book. I'm an open book, Louis. You know that I don't care as long as our relatives get the proper information and they can move forward with it. Because Solar Bear can't be everywhere. So that's the way I feel.
Well, and one of the things too that you just brought up too that I've been talking about, and people have been shaking their heads. It's like these batteries are going way down in price, Robert.
Yeah, and currently, right now, everyone, we have a backlog. I've got a buddy in California that says, he said, Bob, you want to come out here and be a millionaire by next year? He says, I can put you to work and you can go sell solar and battery storage to customers all through California. He said, they're literally just like financing this stuff. And now you think about that, right? And all through the West Coast, everyone is doing this, and Tesla has got a backlog. Sonnen has got a backlog. This is just something that's in the marketplace right now because of why, Robert? It's the fires. It's the fires. It's taking out power lines. People are without power. They need air conditioning.
They're awake. They know what's happening and what they need. Ogimaa, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I don't have a question, but I just want to point this out too. You know, when we talk about Stop Line 3, Winona LaDuke just did an interview with an online magazine, and her statement was, Enbridge sent 4,300 workers here to Minnesota. Imagine what kind of work we could get done in here in Minnesota if we put that kind of workforce into something like solar. About that kind of funding, that kind of workforce here. And like when Bob's talking about this, I'm like, yeah, we could have sent those people. We could be California, like he's talking about, the West Coast, and putting all the solar panels up and being a big part of the reason why this market is growing. And in Minnesota, we're behind, and it makes me sad, but it makes me really proud that we have Bob Blake as part of the Red Lake Nation and putting up the solar panels in our tribe and getting that ball rolling for us. Miigwech for you, Robert, Bob.
And I could just say too, yeah, and I just want to say too, big shout out to the guys up there. I mean, those are the guys that are doing the heavy lifting right now. I'm doing interviews and being followed by TV crews now. I'm like, so it's like that was me. Yeah, that was me before. I was putting up the panels, but unfortunately, I'm not the guy anymore. But and the thing is too, everyone, like, that's the point, right? Like, I mean, we have the capability of creating this workforce and doing it. And that's really my big push. You're going to see it in this national news that's coming out on me. But I clearly point out that tribal nations can save this planet. And I mean it. We can save this planet. And I make that push in that interview.
Wow. And that's why we love having you on, Robert Blake with Solar Bear. Is that you're positive, like Louis said, a positive
ray of sunshine for the solar panels.
That's right. Hey, wow, Wendy, I see what you did there. Wow, that's awesome. But we really appreciate you being on. As always, that was Robert Blake from Red Lake Solar Bear News. We'll be right back after this short break.
Stay with us.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in 4 directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Life is a journey, and the Doherty Family College will help you get where you want to go. Located downtown Minneapolis, this affordable 2-year college provides free textbooks, a laptop, meals, career coaches, one-on-one mentorship, and a Metro Transit pass, making DFC the perfect pathway to a bachelor's degree. Turn your dreams into reality. Connect with a counselor today at dfc.stthomas.edu.
This is Winona the Duke of Honor the Earth, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio. I'm Awake.
We are Hallucin Nation.
Welcome back. Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot, and co-host Wendy Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Lewis,
You're sounding like a haunted wolf over there.
Lewis.
Oh.
We got 4 now.
Yeah. Hey, this show is dedicated to those who give back and fight back for our people and our relatives. We are the resistance. We are awake. All things are our relatives, and what we do to everything, we do to ourselves. All is one. Black Elk said that, Wendy. And I want to introduce you to everybody, that everyone knows you, but you are a humane policy volunteer leader for the Humane Society of the United States, and you work on local and national and everywhere.
Yeah, animal issues. Yep.
Yeah. Welcome. Tell us your name.
Thank you, Robert. My name is Hanaji Hihani, as everybody already knows that. But if you're just tuning in, it means cares for them. And I was given that name by my Dega Curtis, who is Mashke Hanajinga,
Hope
which
he's
means
listening.
walks on white. I don't know if it's walk on white cloud or walks on white clouds.
I think it was walks.
Walks on white clouds. Okay. Well, I always thank him for that name because it really means a lot to me.
Yeah.
But, I was thinking today, like, what am I going to talk about today on the radio show? And, I was thinking, Robert, when you and I went up to Shell Lake, and we were spending time up there, up north. It's like a 3-hour drive up north from here, from the Twin Cities. And we were walking through these paths from like the parking lot to the camp. And it wasn't very far, but it was like a single little lane, like a little hiking path through the woods. But I am a kind of person who thinks all the time, and I'm always like nervous about something. You know that, right?
Yeah, I do.
But what was I worried about? Do you remember what
Animals in the, like bears coming to swoop down and cut my throat?
Because I didn't know, it was such dense forest. And I was kind of looking down at the path because I had sandals on, and there was all like roots from the trees and rocks that you had to really be careful.
I told you not to wear those.
Or else, I know I should have worn my sneakers, but I didn't. You're right. But anyway, I was looking down, and so I wouldn't trip, but I was also kind of looking around to see if there were any animals, especially bears, because when last year we went to Wisconsin and we were going to stay at this cabin at this person's house, and we went up there to see the cabin first, and she said, we have bears here, so like, bring something that makes noise, bring like a little thing that like jingles, or you make noise. That kind of got me nervous, like being a city girl my whole life, thinking about a bear coming at me in someplace, anywhere, like walking, is very scary to me. So
I was brought up with Yogi and Boo Boo. I'm not afraid.
Yeah, I know. Well, I found this article from the Humane Society of the United States, and it's an article that says, what do you do about black bears? And I looked up in Minnesota, black bears are the only bear species in Minnesota, are the black bears. So there's no brown bears or grizzlies or anything like that.
bears.
I didn't know that. And they are found mostly in the northern third of Minnesota, but they can range down south if they find habitat where they could find food and live. But the other thing that while I was looking all this up, they said, what is the most dangerous animal found in Minnesota? Can you take a guess?
Human?
Well,
It's a weasel or something, like a badger.
actually, it's a domesticated dog.
Well, look,
there's Yogi. Domesticated dog, because they bite more people than anything else. But why do bears lose their fear of humans? So bears have acute eyesight and hearing. Their sense of smell is 7 times greater than a bloodhound. I had no idea that they could smell so good. So they have a keen ability to detect pet food, garbage, barbecue grills, and bird feeders.
In a picnic basket.
In a picnic basket is right. And once they locate a food source, they remember where it is. But bears are normally wary of people, but if bear finds food without getting frightened away, he may come back, over and over again if nobody yells at him or gets a pot and pan and something and hits it or scares them away. So the conflicts can heighten during hyperphagia, feeding frenzy in late summer and fall, in which bears bulk up for hibernation, gaining 3 to 4 pounds and consuming, listen to this, 20,000 calories a day. That's a lot of calories.
Wow.
But bears who lose their fear of people are called nuisance bears. Not Yogi Bear, nuisance bears. But there's a lot of benefits to having black bears in the forest. So they disperse seeds across vast distances, even more seeds than birds.
Like Johnny Appleseed?
I didn't
Do they have a
know
little
that.
bag on the side and they throw out
it's
seeds?
through their poop, but it could be they get stuck on their paws and they walk. I'm not really sure. Bears open up forest canopies that allow sun to filter to the forest floor, which creates a greater biological diversity. Bears break logs while grubbing, which helps the decomposition process and facilitates the return of nutrients to the soil. But how do you prevent bear conflicts, right? So if you're living in a bear area where bears are, or you visit,
don't leave out trash.
Right.
Stay away from little bears because
right.
the big bear, mommy bear, is going to beat you up if you.
Inaccessible to bears. Make sure they can't get in it. Enclose your compost pile. Recycle wisely. Make sure you rinse everything out and it doesn't have any smells to it. Keep your barbecue grill clean and as free of drippings as possible. If you're watching on Facebook, it's really pretty funny, the pictures that Ogimaa is putting up. So I
think Lewis is.
Oh, that's Lewis.
It's me.
Pretty funny. It looks like a pretty I think
chill
that's
bear.
A brown bear, but I think it's a pretty relaxed bear. But rethink your bird seeds, feeders. Most people want to feed their birds, but the bears will eat it. And I really want to bring this up. I have about a minute left. Why hunting doesn't solve conflicts with bears. When communities start experiencing conflicts with bears, too often, state wildlife agencies institute a hunt or raise a quota of an existing hunt by a host of studies, but a host of studies show that hunting does nothing to resolve human-bear conflicts. Hunters target bears in the woods, not the ones causing the problems near where the humans live. Hunting also does not permanently reduce bear populations. Numbers actually rebound with the increased availability of food. So we really have to be be careful. And what do you do if you encounter a black bear? If you see a black bear in your yard, don't fear the worst, especially if it's a young animal. He's probably just checking it out and smelling things, and they're really interested in what they see. So you just need to scare off the bear. In most cases, if you make a lot of noise and, you don't want to run after the bear, but you could run after the bear if you want.
So,
don't climb a tree.
So one of the things is instead of conflicting with the bear and killing a bear, you should get a bear counselor to work out your stuff.
Exactly.
To work out.
Well, they have bear spray, and you could have bear spray, and what we were told when we were going to go to that cabin is to bring something like a can of with pennies in it. So you shake it and it makes a really loud noise because they will be, afraid of that.
I want you to notice one thing. We haven't been back to that cabin since.
I know, because I'm afraid of the bears. And then she said there might be snakes in the shed.
That's a name of a movie, isn't it? Hey, I would like to end with these thoughts. If you're listening to this show, you are part of the resistance. From Chief Plentycoops, the ground on which we stand on is sacred ground. It is the blood of our ancestors. We need to resist, divest, join a group, and run for office. Peeny Gigi to Bob Lake from Red Lake. Wendy with your great updates. Ogimaa and Lewis, great news updates. Really, you don't hear any other news like that anywhere. We're still here. We are the seventh generation.
Free Leonard Peltier. Stop line 3.
I'm Candy Brothel, publisher of the Twin Cities edition of Natural Awakenings magazine and host of Green Tea Conversations, a new show for people who are on a journey to take responsibility for their health and play a more active